Quick disclaimer, this is a list of free games. We also do a list of the best paid games of the month. You may want to check that out as well. Number 10 is Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery, an RPG set in the wizardry world. Of course, the title contains Hogwarts Mystery, and that means you will be at Hogwarts solving a mystery. It is not perfect, but it is also not nearly as bad as a lot of people have been saying. This is a game that if you like Harry Potter and RPGs, you will want to play. However, there are some pretty interesting microtransaction prompts that end up taking advantage of wait time in a way that they probably shouldn't. There are things about this game that have made people quite mad though, and I would suggest that they will likely change. And I hope that's the case because the bones of the game are actually very fun. Like, it gets the world right, uses the real actors as voice actors, has a pretty good sense of humor. I mean, it has all the elements of a game you would want to play, but as I said, is a bit aggressive in its monetization. Beyond that, it's fun and worth playing. Number 9 is Major Mayhem 2, an arcade shooter, which is a colorful, fun platform shooter that at times makes you wish that there was more like this, not just on phones, but on other platforms as well. Just like the first, it's a game that combines the best of on-rails arcade shooters with a sort of platforming experience, and again, like the first, has exhilarating boss fights with a lot of very interesting effects and weapons. Number 8 is Starlost, a game that takes quite a few different genres and sort of mashes them into one. You've got your tower defense, your top-down space shooter, the unavoidable bullet hell. The game eventually works off of a pretty fresh take on the classic shoot-'em-up gameplay that you might expect in a game with a little less depth. That's the main advantage that Starlost has, actually. There's a lot more to this game, and like I said, just mixes a bunch of different genres effortlessly to great effect. Number 7 is Pocket Knights 2, a 3D action RPG that does a whole lot in terms of crafting and team assembly, but really just has a good game loop. This is one of those games that feels paced very good. Now, it does have a somewhat limiting class system, as in it doesn't really have much of one. That doesn't mean it isn't well made and addictive to play, and I would certainly give it some time. Number 6 is The Moose Man, which sounds silly, but I wouldn't call it silly. It's actually a very good environmental narrative experience with a very unique art style that involves exploring the quote-unquote 3 layers of the universe. The Moose Man can see more than the average human being, and that is exactly the point of the game. If you hate narrative games, you're not going to like this game, but if you don't hate narrative games, I would almost guarantee this as one you would want to play. It is relatively short, but that does not mean it is not a good experience. It absolutely is. Number 5 is Sidorica Sunset, a fantasy RPG 4 years in the making. This is an absolutely beautiful game and manages to mix matching and RPGs to good effect, but really, this is just a top-notch RPG. I haven't beaten it yet, so I can't tell you that the story is great the whole way through, but I've certainly been enjoying it so far. And the visual style is honestly just incredibly pleasing. Not that puzzle and RPG have never been mixed, of course, like we've mentioned another puzzle RPG today, but it just does it in a very pleasant way that I feel is worth playing. It's also, again, gorgeous. Number 4 is Paladin Strike, a hero-based shooter that really shines in its PvP mode, where you play 5 versus 5 battles in top-down views. It's a game that is more than competently put together. Paladin Strike is a great MOBA game that actually depends heavily on teamwork, as opposed to just saying it depends heavily on teamwork and then kind of letting you do whatever. It's obviously not the exact same thing as Paladins, but it transports a lot of the ideas, and it does them very well. Number 3 is Fishing Strike, and well, that sounds like that could easily be boring. It is not. This is a game that so perfectly creates tension and suspense as it does something pretty basic, actually. A fishing game isn't exactly high art or anything, and while this game certainly does a serviceable job with the graphics, the real draw is certainly the gameplay. Now keep in mind its pay model is that of paying for more content, but the mechanics of the game itself are incredibly fun, and I find really for the purpose it's not super important to get more tanks, but obviously there will be people out there who want them, so be aware that they're fairly pricey. Still, hell of a game. Number 2 is Touch Grind BMX, a biking game that you control with 2 fingers. one on the front of the bike, one on the back, and believe it or not, from there, it is an incredibly intuitive experience. You flick, you spin, you pull, you push. Really, the main draw is the tricks, and the trick execution system is a hell of a lot of fun. It works very, very well.
And you don't really get like a game that is particularly different, especially a sports game, or to go even further, especially a free sports game. My only weird thing I have about it is I wonder why it is a biking game instead of like a skateboard game, because in a lot of ways it kind of reminds me of playing with one of those little tech decks. Still, it's not something that you really have anywhere else on mobile right now, and I think that makes it pretty interesting.
Finally, number 1 is Friday the 13th Killer Puzzle, a game that takes the isometric mobile puzzle type game and makes it very, very violent. However, it keeps a cutesy look to it, so the violence is somewhat moderated by that, but not a lot. It's pretty intense. But the levels have a great variety over time. There's wilderness to city, and the puzzles actually feel different enough over the course of that period of time that it's worth playing all 100 plus of them. It's not a shocking experience or anything. Certainly the ideas have been explored before, but the personality in this game, as well as the sheer quality of the puzzles themselves, is what will get you playing.
And if you're saying to yourself, well, it's a free game based on a licensed property, that can't possibly be true, I would encourage you at least to try it, because I think it's quite a bit better than a lot of other games of that nature. And a quick bonus for you as well, it's a game called Hopper, which is a really interesting platformer that really has an interesting sort of layer of nostalgia to it that I can't quite pin down. Like at times it reminds me of Bug, at times it reminds me of Mario 64, but it's really not a lot like those things because it's a physics puzzle game too, with you bouncing across a bunch of platforms in several different worlds. Definitely a fun game, and you need to check it out.
What iOS and Android games did you play this past month? Did you like the ones we mentioned? Leave us a comment, and if you like this video, click the like button. If you're not subscribed, now would be a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is